Mayor, this item is listed on the agenda because you and one or two other council members and I have had some discussion about the possible interest in changing the charge to the UIB, the way it operates. And of course, we've provided in your packet information as to the ordinances that created the UIB. And I think I'll yield to your discussion on this, but my understanding is that there might be some interest in changing the composition of the UIB to include members of other boards and commissions of the city, and then have that board meet at the call and on the request of the city council, just because of the operational obstacles that we've had in having the UIB meet on a regular basis. So I'm open for discussion, but what we could do is if the council wanted to change the charge to the UIB to be something like meeting on as directed and requested by the city council for a specific topic, such as to examine water and sewer rates, or to evaluate and make a recommendation to the council as regards the contracts with the city of Arlington, or to prioritize drainage projects, then they could meet at your request, and we could draft such an ordinance and a charge such that it would also state that the composition was made up of 2 members of each of several other boards or commissions where they would be very familiar with issues going on in the city. So just kind of as an introduction, that's the reason this is listed on the agenda, and we'd be happy to go back and draft whatever the city council is inclined to want to do with that board. It is the one that you have not made appointments to yet this week, so this month.
Well, I brought it up to you because it seems to me that it's a board that meets here regularly. It's hard to have any consistency, trying to get a quorum, having people know what's going on. And I had suggested that maybe that we take 2 members from city council, 2 members from the P&Z, 2 members from the BOA, 2 members from the EDC, something along those lines, just roughly, and make them the board so that every board knows what the infrastructure board is doing and all has an input on it. As a way of getting that board to have a regular meeting and people that are constantly engaged. With the UIB right now, it's hard to have them engaged when we have, they've completed the task of ranking our projects. What do you do with them now? I mean, you don't meet for 6 months. You don't meet them. You don't make people meet just so that they're meeting. You never want to have a meeting in search of an agenda. So it just seems to me we could probably do that board better. Chris, any thoughts? We've got to go around the room.
I agree, Mayor. I think that, through no fault of their own, when there's not an agenda for them to discuss, the members become disengaged or maybe unaware of what's going on. And if we took members from existing boards, for example, whatever they are, if you have people from Parks, people from P&Z, people from EDC or BOA, they're already engaged in the city. They could offer their opinion on how a given project might affect a certain part of, how would this project affect Parks? How would this affect development within the city? And since there are already folks that are members of boards, we can call them as needed, give them a specific charge, and then they can go back to their other boards until another item comes up. I think it just gives more consistency, probably a better informed board, because I agree, meeting just for the sake of saying, well, we have a meeting, but we don't have any action, we don't have any funding for a project at this time, or there's no engineering completed for us to review is not productive use of time and just makes people eventually not want to attend the meetings anymore. Where if we had 2 or 3 very productive meetings over the course of a year, I think those board members would be much more engaged and inclined to make decisions and stay involved and bring ideas to the table. I don't know that I have any particular, I'm kind of like you, I think 2 members from 2 or 3 boards, who those are, I haven't decided, or I'm kind of open to that discussion, but off the top of my head, I think P&Z would certainly be people you'd want to have represented, and the EDC or the BOA or a combination of those, and then whatever other boards we want to add members from, but those are the ones I think the infrastructure probably affects to the greatest amount on a given.
Sandra?
I'm assuming that y'all already discussed it, so whatever y'all say, I'm for.
Okay. Linda? Chad? Well, my thought was that if we could give them the charge to address specific issues like water and sewer rates, stormwater rates, prioritize drainage projects for us again, continue that, things like that. And I was thinking when we look at P and Z members, put the chair, maybe put that new member, Mark Perkins, who's an engineer on that board. There's something that would be key. Get a couple of Parks Board members like the chair, Michael Deaver. Kenneth Michaels would be somebody else. Sorry, Kenneth, thrown on there. And then EDC, maybe Johnny Trevino, who's turned out to be a real good find that we appointed. When did we appoint Johnny Trevino? Was that last year?
Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's been a really excellent find. And maybe Andrew Schaefer, who's also a lawyer. So just some names. I think we'd have to come back with an ordinance, right?
Yeah, we haven't even attempted to redraft the charge, but we could do that. If that sounds consistent with what you want, I would work with Drew in the city attorney's office to draft a new charge for that committee and set out when they met and bring it back to you. And then we would just delay appointments to that board until you read and adopted the new ordinance.
And we might even put in a non-board citizen, just find somebody who's a citizen and see if they'd be willing to come in and serve too. Because we've got a lot of expertise out in the community. We need to be able to get those people in there to help us make those decisions. So we have to go find somebody.
Would we, Mayor, you think maybe 7 members and then 1 or 2 alternates would be
Yeah, that's what.
appropriate?
Yeah, about 7
George,
members.
What are your thoughts on the number of members that would be
No, I think that,
best?
I think in the ones the mayor just read off, there are some people who currently serve on that board who would now meet some of that criteria. I mean, Mr. Perkins is one. There's a citizen who's I think is a staff member in Parks Department in Arlington that might just be a citizen representative.
Is that Jeff Gregory?
Yes, I think that's right. But, yeah, I think a 7-member board with some alternates would be more manageable from the standpoint of you all determining what issue you want their advice on, and then let us work with them to study that issue and come back to you with a recommendation. So it'd be an advisory board, clearly. And I think, Mayor, you'd mentioned members of the city council being on it. If in fact it's going to be strictly advisory to the city council, you might want to think about whether you'd want council members on it or not. If they're making recommendations to the city council,
Right.
you might not want to do that. But
I just want a more engaged board that brings in a different perspective, a lot of different perspectives, and EDC and P&Z and Parks would all have to deal with stormwater. They'd have to deal with those kind of issues and infrastructure issues. So work something up and bring it back to us, and let's talk about it some more. Discussion of contracting with Shoot 2 Productions to hold the Canada Western Festival, a professional bull riding event with various vendors, to be held on Saturday, November 9th, 2019.
Mayor, you have a staff report in your packet, but I'd ask Mr. Hoover if he would kind of present this and discuss it, and we're seeking direction again on this item from the council.
Hello, can y'all hear me? Yes, Shoot 2 Productions produces an annual professional bull riding event throughout North Texas. Some of the cities listed are Lake Worth, Granbury, Springtown, Nevada, Princeton, Wiley, and Hazlet. They provide generally the arena, the animals, and the people to, whoops, I did that. The people to hold the event. The city would be responsible for providing the electricity, the sand for the arena floor, EMS, fire protection, and helping them set up the arena. Mr. Clark is not here. I was not able to contact him. So at the Parks Board regular meeting, there was a presentation. Some of the slides are in your packet of some of the events he has held in the past. And the Parks Board was excited. They liked the idea. However, they didn't see the contract and realize it was a one-page contract with really no legal ease to it at all. It just basically stated the city would provide this. Shoot 2 Productions would provide the animals in the arena. Mr. Craig Hughes, who is managing principal of Hughes Commercial Texas, which has the lots out here in Town Center, was in favor in the beginning, but once he looked at some of the issues, he had verbally indicated to me that he was not in favor of holding that event this November on his lot in Town Center. So the secondary location of Sonora Park has some issues with kind of being isolated away from Town Center and parking and the logistics of getting people to the park and parking them with available parking would be an issue that could be quite expensive if we have to bus people back and forth. There's currently no funding in the budget this year for this. It is $15,000 we pay to him to hold the event and to manage any vendors that would attend the event. Staff's recommendation is that we kind of hold this off, maybe look at it next year, look at maybe managing the vendors ourselves as a source of revenue, and maybe tying it in with something else and not just a professional bull riding event. You have any questions?
Now, yeah, I was looking at it. The venue would hold 1,500 people, correct?
You know, I don't remember him giving me a number, but I think so. He has more bleachers.
Right.
He could bring more, but typically the first year, he says, is typically small. You don't get a great turnout, but as it grows over years, he can bring more in.
Okay, because then it says we need at least 4,000 people to break even, I guess?
Yes, ma'am.
So, I mean, so we're going to have 25 people watching it from their cars or 2,500 watching?
You do that math.
Yeah.
Well, I think 4,000 people would be nearly every paying adult in the city of Kennedale. Be close to it.
And they couldn't get in the arena with only 1,500 seats, so I'm with Larry on that.
I mean, I guess I would look at it as it's us paying $15,000 to hold an event, and we're not gonna make our money back. It's not, I don't even see how it's possible.
Yes, sir.
That we would get that, so we would have to basically just plan on sponsoring the event, and whatever we get back is nice.
Well, we would hope that maybe some of the people would visit Chicken Express, Dickey's Barbecue, get gas somewhere, or, you know, if we get a hotel, maybe stay at a hotel at some point down the line.
I think there's a lot of potential here to do this, but I am a little bit concerned about moving too quickly with this kind of an event. And as I discussed it with some of the other cities, the concern that clearly if you're going to have it on city property, even if that's Town Center or Sonora Park, then we need to have some control and some management of the vendors and what they're vending and how they're managed and whether they're meeting the city's rules and regulations and so forth. And it's just a little difficult to try to do that and gear up for it and anticipate that without having a contract at this point that fully describes what their responsibilities are and what ours would be. So timing is a big issue, in my opinion, right now.
Linda?
I agree with the city manager. It is a great potential, but maybe something to look at for next year. As far as like the contract, yeah, I was surprised to see it just a one page because I've seen theirs from the other city in Lake Worth, and it was longer than a one pager. So you might want to reach out, if this is something that we do go forward with, maybe reach out to the other cities to see a copy of theirs.
Chad?
Yeah, I agree with George on that one. You know, as a professional production company myself, I own one. I don't see how we do this in less than 60 days. I just don't see that being possible. And making it what it should be to represent the city's needs and interests. Going into that as well, I've worked with other cities doing Christmas stuff, and I think some things we should think about are, you know, percentages as a vendor fee. You know, if whatever vendors selling their products are good, then the city should be able to get a percent. Because one of the issues we worked with other cities was if they don't have a sales tax certificate for our city, they're paying sales tax to a completely different city, even though they're collecting it here. So rather than forcing them to get a sales tax certificate just for our city, we would take a percent of their sales and revenue as part of their vendor fees. I'm not keen on somebody getting paid and then getting to bring in all their own vendors to collect all those fees. I think, you know, if we're the one fronting the money, we should be the one collecting the vendors' fees. That just kind of makes sense to me from a business standpoint. But yeah, I don't think 60 days, because that's where we're at right now, being past September 9th, you're less than 60 days away. So I think logistically, that's just not possible this year. I also think that, I've had quite a few conversations with other people that, just a bull riding event is going to be a very narrow focus. And I think if we can partner this up with something else like a police and fire thing or a chili cook-off or something like that to kind of broaden its scope to get more general appeal from not just Kennedale, but our surrounding cities to get people in, I think that's something we should really consider. That way we have a better chance at hitting that break-even mark or even causing the ability for us to increase that attendance fee because it comes with other things or other items, more value added to it. So that's my 2 cents.
We've talked about, on occasion, reviving the Texas Independence Day parade that used to be held in Kennedale. Maybe that's a potential way to team that up with something else, would be if we were able to revive Texas Independence Day and use that as part of a celebration around that somehow.
If I may, one of the reasons we chose November 9th was it was an open spot in his schedule. In May, in March, when Texas Independence Day would be available, he's pretty booked with Wiley and Nevada, I believe. So,
Well, I think, though, if you're a year in advance, right? If you,
That's really what I was thinking.
yeah, you do it a year in advance. And also, you have to budget for the $20,000 that we probably would need to budget if we were going to do that. So we need to have that discussion during the budget season, looking at what the other needs are. I mean, it's a great idea, but we need to make sure it fits in with our budget. Anything else? All right. Item D, continued discussion regarding the city manager's budget. Questions, comments? All right.
Are we using this or are we raising how we do it?
Well, I use my piece of paper. I'll figure this one out here shortly.
So I just wanted to ask George just a question for clarification. So on the compensation for the staff, it's my understanding that we're going to be increasing everyone to, is it to the 80% level? And then those that are at the 80% level will get a small increase regardless of where they fall above that.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
the strategy or the plan is to, let me talk about all employee groups. But on public safety, you'll remember last year, we implemented a step plan in both police and fire and adopted the plan that was intended to be 90% of the market, of our benchmark cities market. Now, I understand that's now 18 months old or something, market is, but and so we placed employees in the public safety departments, sworn employees, in the fire department particularly, into the correct step that they should be in based upon their tenure, with the exception of drivers and lieutenants. And we didn't have enough money to put them, and the more tenured they are, the further up in the step plan they'd be. So many of those remained in step one, even though they would be eligible to be in higher steps. Our intent this year, with this funding, is to put all sworn personnel in police and fire in the correct step where they belong, and that would include the lieutenants and drivers, and everybody at this point in fire should be in the correct step when we're through. In the police department, they were much further behind the curve last year, and so as we put those folks into the step plan, nearly everybody went into step one. This year, with this funding, we would move all police employees into the correct step based on their tenure. So police and fire would be where they belong. In the civilian workforce, the non-sworn people in public safety and in all other city departments, the intent is to try to get them as close to 80% of the market, not 90, but at least 80% of the market as is possible with this funding. And those who are already at 80%, what we would do is move them to 80%, but not less than a 2% adjustment. So that would take care of all the groups with the exception of department heads, and we're trying to follow the same practice with department heads. When I said that the police were the furthest out of sync, really it's the department head level positions that are so far behind market that makes recruiting and retention difficult. But it's to follow the same, even with police and fire departments, try to get everybody to as close to 80% as possible, but not less than 2%.
So everybody is going to get something, even if they're at the 80% mark. They'll
Well,
still get the 2%.
Not, well, there are some exceptions to that because we've just hired a number of new firefighters, for instance, and they were hired in at a month or two ago at the correct step. So on October 1st, they would not be getting anything. But they'll be in the plan, and on their anniversary date, they would be getting an adjustment pursuant to the plan.
Thank you, George.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll move on to discussion of any items on the regular agenda. Is there any items on the regular agenda? I would like to ask, when we're looking at these engineering projects for Collett Sublet, Linda Road, not Linda Roads, but Linda Road. Larry, where are we at looking at Peggy Lane?
Peggy Lane, Craig Barnes is here if you have any questions for the engineer. We were just out there this afternoon looking at the topographic area. We have some drainage issues that we need to address. We should have that hopefully next month's meeting. We should have a contract here for you to approve.
All of these projects, Mr. Mayor, are designed to try to get us moving on some projects that the council has expressed concern about, and the proceeds from the tax notes is allowing us to do that. And Peggy Lane is one we just didn't have a proposal in hand for tonight.
All right, so we had a list of about 20 projects, somewhere around there, roads and stuff like that. And so these are the first ones we're going to tackle.
Roads, yes, roads, drainage and water, sewer.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to move us into executive session pursuant 551.071. Make sure I have anything else on here that I need to go into executive session about. Nope, that's it. Oh, you do that first. So we get out. All right, we'll start our regular work session. Make note that everybody's here except for Josh Halton. He's not here. So we need to do invocation. And Sarah, you want to do the invocation? Everybody please stand for the invocation.
Dear Lord, we come to you tonight. Thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed on our city and how we, going forward, Lord, we do come together as one city and unite instead of being divided, Lord. I thank you for each and one of these council members who willing to give up their time to help us and support us and make good, sound decisions for us, Lord. I pray that tonight that the council will listen to each of the speakers and clean from that how we can change things to make things better here for our city, Lord. Thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Have you join me with the pledges? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, so we will start off with our Citizens Visitors Forum. We got 3 minutes, so let's start off with Joe Palmer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Congratulations on the video equipment. That's excellent.
Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll fix my hair next time. Wanted to speak to you very quickly on the idea of businesses in Kennedale being a vital member of the community. As you may know, I've been speaking to business owners and business managers around the city for the last few weeks, and I've got to tell you, I know you've probably been out talking to business owners, but I would encourage you, if you have not lately, go out and really engage some of these business owners and look at what they're doing. Look at some of the precision that's involved in their manufacturing in those cases. Look at how clean their work environment is, and look at the sense of community that's displayed in these business areas. There's different kinds of community. There's a community that we all instantly recognize, and that is a family community. Kids playing together, families living next door to each other. My vision of community involves front porches and sharing lemonade without a license and being social. And where that sometimes appears to be eroded, it sort of comes up in other places that's undiscovered or unnoticed. And nowhere is that more the case than in Kennedale, Texas. And I'll give you a specific example without revealing specific identities. I went to go speak to one business owner, and he was a little bit apprehensive about talking about city issues with me in particular. And so I went and I found a guarantor, another business owner who went with me. And while I was there, trust replaced suspicion, and really meaningful conversation took place between these two business owners. One of the business owners needed something very specific that the other business owner could provide. And he asked him for this favor, and he was willing to pay for it. And the other gentleman said, I'll do it for you. You don't have to pay me, and I will bring it to you. That's community, and that's something that you should cherish and something that you should cultivate. And I appreciate your time this evening. I hope you have a good, productive meeting.
And Joe, you've also signed up for item A, B, and C?
That is correct.
Yeah, I'll call you back.
Budget and the tax rate and the ad valorem.
Right, I'll call you back for
You have
those.
two tax rate.
Next up, Jeff Navarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just coming to give you guys a final report on Concert in the Park, which is October 12th. We have about 32 vendors roughly signed up. That's roughly confirmed or so. We've also had huge donations, such as the Rotary Club has donated $1,000 to our cause. So this has given us a lot of leeway with some of the things we're going to do. Just a little timeline of what's going on. 8 o'clock is set up. 10:30, we will have a opening ceremony where the private school is going to send their drum line up. We'll do the pledge, we'll do a prayer. I've asked Ms. Kennedale to speak, I've asked the Rotary Club to speak, and I've asked the mayor to speak during this event. After that, Linda is going to take over from 11 o'clock till about 1 o'clock. She'll have some of the choirs from around the school sing. From 1 to 3, they'll have the Kennedale's Got Talent. This is a fundraiser for the theater in the park. It's $10 to sign up, and I've actually heard a lot of people say they're interested. So if you're interested in showing off your talent, I think Chris has some of it, then please sign up for that. After that, we'll take a small break in the afternoon from about 3 to 4 or so. From 4 o'clock on is when our concert series will start. We have the Cowtown Opry Buckaroos coming, the Deatons, and the Deatons actually had sang for one of the inaugurations for, I think it was Trump. If not, it was Obama. Abby Payne will be singing as well. Allie Fortin will be singing. Phil Wallace will be singing. And then, of course, we invited back Big Joe Walker from last year to come and do our headliner this year since he got rained out. What I'm asking for you, a lot of you have donated, and I appreciate that, and I want to thank anybody who's donated. I also want to thank my two lead volunteers, Lucretia and Lori back there, who have helped me immensely this year. If we're looking for a good event. What I can ask for you guys is prayers. The biggest prayer right now is no rain. Thank you.
Real quick, did you invite Lee Snaples too? Did you invite Dr. Lee Snaples too?
Dr. who?
Lee Snaples?
I don't know who that is.
Oh, he told me he had a gig in Kennedale as a singer at one of the events.
He's welcome.
Okay.
I have a small spot.
Obviously, you haven't heard him sing. Next up, Lori Sanders.
Laurie Sanders, 208 West Fifth Street, and I'm here to invite everyone here for Thursday night at the library to the Mayor's Historical Lecture Series. And this is put on by the library, the Kennedale Historical Society, and gratefully to Mayor Johnson, who supplies all the speakers. Well, this month we've got a special treat because Mayor Johnson is speaking. So he's going to speak on civil rights, and it's going to be a very good lecture, so everyone come. It starts at 6:30, and there will be refreshments, so everyone's invited.
Do you want to mention the health fair, too?
Oh, yeah, and in November, the 16th, we'll be having a health fair for the community. It's going to be out here in Town Center, parking lot, and it is put on by, help me with the name of it, MCC, what that stood for. Chris, what was it?
Muslim Community Center, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. So it's going to be a free health clinic, and it's not just a blood pressure check. You will either get whatever you need, or you'll get a voucher to go to their clinic in North Richland Hills. So it's going to be really good for our community.
Thank you. Yeah, and the clinic is free. That for those who can't pay, you can go to their clinic and get free health care. Yeah. Last but not least, Iris Esprit, is that right? Did I get that right? It's French. I can recognize Esprit.
All right. My name is Iris Esprit. Hi. I've met most of you guys, but today one of the things I wanted to talk about is one of the things I think could make a difference for Kennedale, and that would be the ordinance for farmers market. My husband and I, we actually want to start a farmer's market. We talked to the post office, got approval from the postmaster to use their parking lot. We've done our research. We've talked to numerous vendors, from a lady that makes tamales to Bob in the back of us that grows his fruits and vegetables, to Miss Carla. She does chickens and eggs. And the thing is that we've noticed there's not a lot of food here in Kennedale. We have a lot of fast food, but we do not have a lot of healthy food options. And so the healthy food options I feel that we could provide would be through the farmer's market. And the thing that's kind of stopping that with us right now would be the requirement for you to have a permanent food establishment, or the fact that you can only have things that you grow at the farmer's market. So one of the things that I brought up was the temporary food establishment that is being used by numerous Texas farmers markets that allows people to sell hot dogs, things like that, and still be able to provide healthy, safe food for the people around us. So my question is why can't we make sure that our requirements fit with the county, but why should they be so strict that we're limiting Kennedale that needs to grow? I mean, we need food and we need vegetables, and all we have is Walmart, and then we have the Pit Stop, and then, you know, the other places, they close at 8, and on the weekends, there's not much options, you know? So it's not to say that any of these things would take away from those businesses. I don't think that's the case at all, because it would be on the weekends only. But it would be a place for families to gather. It would be a place for people to sell their handmade goods, cottage foods, all those different things. And so as of now, you guys already know the ordinance says we cannot do that. And I'm asking, is it possible for you guys to at least take the time to consider this? Because I feel like it's fair, and I feel like it's doable, and I feel like it would be safe, and I feel like it would not harm the neighborhood at all. And that's it. Thank you.
George, can we put that on for a discussion of the workshop at the next meeting?
Yes.
So
Okay.
come to the next meeting, we'll have it on discussion for workshop.
Thank you. That's a fresh start.
All right, thanks. All right, no one else has signed up, so we'll move on to reports and announcements. Updates from the city council. Josh? Okay, Josh has got nothing. Chris?
This past Saturday, the mayor and the mayor pro tem were not able to attend, so my wife Elena and I were asked to attend the Grape Stomp and Grapevine. And I'm pleased to announce that, first of all, we met Mayor Tate. And those of you who don't know, William Tate has been the mayor in Grapevine for 43 of the last 46 years. He was not served one term in the 80s, but he's been the mayor there consistently since 1988, I believe. But we participated in the contest. Basically what they do is they put a whole bunch of grapes in a bucket and one person stomps them and the other person catches the juice. You do that for 1 minute, then you switch places, you do it for the other minute. And my wife and I won most juice produced. We beat 16 other cities out. And so we got a certificate that I'd like to give to the city secretary to put in the record or whatever we do with those kind of things. So.
Yeah, thanks for saying you got the most juiced and then clarified that. Sandra?
Sunday, I attended First United Methodist Church. They was given a presentation about the Muslim community and about how we can all get along. And so, we really learned a lot about reaching out to different races and ethnicities. And hopefully, they will come into Kennedale and spend a lot more time so we can get to know them and understand that they're no different from us. Thank you.
Chad? I fooled you, didn't I, Linda?
I attended a meeting of When We Love. It's a homeless program that helps people get out of homelessness, especially children. For those that don't know, I'm a huge advocate for homeless children. So anytime I can work with a charity or group that assists these people in breaking the cycle of poverty, I'm all in. So went and learned about some community events that they're working on and things that they're trying to do, even here in our community, since they're just outside of us, but they're trying to come this way. And so I've been offering all the help I can give them to help our community as well.
Linda?
I attended the Rotary meeting this last month. Thank you, Lori, for inviting me. They had the speaker, Mr. Bill Wayburn, the Tarrant County Sheriff, and he talked about law enforcement programs that they have dealing with mental health issues and the growing numbers that they have with that problem, and all the great numbers that they have in the Tarrant County facilities right now. And as far as like rehab programs that they have going on with that, they deal with, a lot of times the people that are in there, it's due to broken homes and lack of high school education and, of course, drugs. They play a huge part in that as well. But very good speaker. I enjoyed that.
Oh, it sounded like you were going on. For me, I attended the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition Board meeting on 2 weeks ago Wednesday. We talked about, again, Hyperloop. Tomorrow, we're having a major meeting with Mayor Price, Mayor Williams, and a bunch of other mayors and some private industry leaders about redesigning that board and going in a different direction. So it's big news for us. And of course, TxDOT has announced that they have fully funded the interchange at I-20, 820, and 287 to a tune of $1.8 billion. So work should begin on that by 2021, finished by 2026. And for you naysayers out there who say they won't finish that fast, so far they've been finishing under budget and under their time period so far. So maybe that'll continue. That's important to Kennedale because it's going to be working all the way down to Forest Hill Drive, all the way down to Sublet, and then all the way up to I-30 where they're going to be making those changes. And hopefully we're going to see some better access to Kennedale, which might open up that front area for redevelopment. And I know we in Kennedale have been pushing for that for now a long, long time. And it's nice to see it come into fruition. All right, updates from the city manager.
Mayor, I'd like to yield my couple of minutes to Leslie Galloway just to talk for a minute about some of the equipment you see in this room and your iPads and what we hope. I'm desperately trying to keep mine on at the moment, but Leslie, if you would, let them know what they have here and what we're going to be doing with it going down the road.
So you should all have your iPads in front of you with the agenda on it, which at the bottom, if I do my job correctly, will pop up the item that we're on. And if you touch that, then you can see all the attachments and you can annotate the PDFs and things, which we'll get into all that as we go on. We're actually going to try out the voting system tonight. So that should pop up on your screen whenever the mayor calls for a vote. I just hit a button and it'll pop up on your screen. So if we fail, then we'll go back to raising hands for tonight. But we will also schedule a meeting in small groups for about an hour with each of you to go over it. But we just wanted you to all get a look at it so you know what questions you might want to ask about how to use it.
And will the votes show up on these screens?
That's the plan.
And then will we be expanding this for the P and Z and everybody else?
That is also the plan, but I am the guinea pig. But a huge thank you to Danielle for all she did to coordinate this, and Chris Starzyk for helping us get it all set up today, so.
I don't think we can do it. Can we do a simulated vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Give me a simulated vote. Let's not do that.
Hold on, what?
Let's vote on Leslie Galloway as city secretary. Yeah, that's safer. I don't have anything that. I'm not saying anything on mine that says I should vote or anything.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
when you sign in, normally when you sign in, there'd be a place that you're there as a voting member or a
Right.
non-voting member.
So do I need to do anything? So did we get a vote? Oh, there it goes. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Wow. Well, to be honest, Josh isn't here. Ouchie. All right, very good. And of course, if you look back in the back corner, it's now being videotaped and recorded to be played on later. So it's not being streamed live yet, but we load it up as soon as we can so people can see everything that's going on. So,
Can I say one other thing?
yep.
Last night, I attended Kennedale Senior Outreach, and we are working on an anniversary next month, right, Sarah? 28th. I don't want to forget that, otherwise I will hear it for the next 2 weeks. Anybody who wants to get involved, please contact Sarah and let her know.
All right. Got yourself covered. That's
Yeah.
good. All right, so let's go to require approval items, consent agenda. These are items that require little or no deliberation or are considered routine. If discussion desired, any item may be removed. Does anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Second. All right, all those in favor, enter your vote. Yep. Suspense is killing me. Vote passes 4-0. Okay, good. All right, decision item. Discuss and consider ordinance 678, Kennedale, Texas, adopting the budget for the fiscal year October 1st, ending September 30th, 2020, appropriating resources for each department, project, blah, 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 expenditures, providing for emergency spenders spent by state law, and providing for an active date. I think I'll have a public hearing. Joe Palmer wanted to speak on this. Item A. Joe? Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe Palmer, 4017 Sanguinite Court, Fort Worth, Texas, speaking on behalf of the Kennedale Alliance of Business Owners. We're on the budget. That's the agenda item right now, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I'm not going to come up here, burn the house down, tell you to cut fire, cut police, all that other good stuff that a lot of people think taxpayer advocates are doing. But, what I would ask you to take a look at is when you're going down the budget, and I know you've thoroughly gone through it, but you haven't voted on the budget yet. But when you do, before you make your final vote, just consider some of the people out there who are facing real hardship, some of the property owners out there, some of the homeowners, people like my aunt. She was born in the house that she currently lives in. My grandparents bought that house in 1967. They paid $6,000 for the house. This year, the Tarrant Appraisal District wants my aunt to pay that same amount of money to live in that house that she was born in for 1 year's period of time. This house was built in 1922. It's got wood siding, it's got linoleum in the kitchen. You can see the water heater when you're standing in the kitchen. And it's not a glamorous house, but there are things that you can do. I believe that everybody on this body, when they ran for office, they ran on some variation of wanting to help people in the community. And genuinely so, I believe. You have an opportunity to help people. You have an opportunity to help people go through the budget, make some cuts, trim things. Don't slash. But one thing that you can do without, I believe, is the new position of an assistant planner. I think you can cut that right out of the budget. I don't think it's necessary. If somebody does believe it's necessary, I'd be open to hear that argument. But I have not heard that argument yet. And those are my thoughts. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. All right, so I need a motion and a second before we start discussion, so I want to close the public hearing. Anybody have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we consider adoption of ordinance 678, adopting the fiscal year 1920 budget for the city of Kennedale as presented by the city manager.
All right, do I have a second?
I second it.
All right, so discussion. Any discussion on the budget? Really? Nothing? Well, I will say this about the budget, is that although we're going up a penny, we dropped 4 cents last, 4 cents? 4 cents last year. And from what I noticed is the school district is dropping their percentage by 11 cents, mainly because they're getting greater funding by the state than they ever before. So theirs is going to go down. And so is the county's going to go down by a penny. Now, saying that, that means that you're going to see an average drop of about 11 cents. Now, I haven't done the numbers. Somebody can do that. Yeah, that's about right. But that doesn't include appraisal. Now, appraisal's going to go up, and so you may drop 11%, but you still might end up paying, what's the word I'm going to use? More. You may end up paying more. But I had talked to the county judge, I had talked to the school board, and that's what their plans are, dropping it to that degree. Even if we got rid of the planner, we are balancing on a pinhead on our reserves because of what we did last year. And trying to pay our firefighters and our first responders is important. So I do think we need to always look at the budget, looking at trimming where we can. I think that's important. Government should be lean and effective. All right, any other discussion? All right, well then, please enter your vote. We have a time remaining?
What if I could interject? This needs to be a record vote. So,
It'll say up there.
well, okay.
It'll show everybody's name.
Typically, we go down, in most of my cities, we'll just go down the,
No, we've never done that.
okay.
And you know what? The legislature doesn't do it either. So when the legislature wants to do it, we'll do it. Go ahead, enter your vote. Vote passed 4-0. All right, next up, discussion ratification of property tax increase reflected in the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, adopted budget. I think Joe's signed up to speak for that. Joe, you want to pop up?
Joe Palmer, 4017 Sanguinite Court, Fort Worth, Texas, speaking on behalf of CABO, Kennedale Alliance of Business Owners. So we should trim where we can. Where did you trim? You know, that's a fair question. And the school tax rate and the school budget doesn't have anything to do, doesn't have any bearing in this room. We can lean on the school budget as a way to sort of offset what the city does and call the total tax rate a reduction. But you've left me far behind on that one. As far as the rate goes, your preceding rate was 0.725. For a $200,000 home, that means property tax for the city of Kennedale portion, $1,451. Your proposed tax rate for this year is 0.7349. I pulled this from the website. If you've modified this, stop me. For a $200,000 home, that means a bill of $1,469. The effective tax rate, which I don't know how much time we're going to spend talking tonight about, the effective tax rate is the amount of taxes that you can bring in, the amount of revenue that you can bring in to match last year's revenue on the same properties, not including the new growth, not including the new construction. And why does that matter? Because you're going to see almost $200,000 in new taxes off of new growth this year that you never saw before. And that represents about 4.5% of increase in taxes from last year. I would submit to members of this body that if you can't run your city government on a 4.5 increase, something's wrong. You ought to be able to operate on 4.5% increase. Why? Because families are having to operate on much less increase. How many people got a 4.5% raise last year? Cost of living. Tie your budget to the cost of living for the benefit of the people out there. And Mayor, I appreciate the reference to the appraisals. The appraisals are largely out of your control. You vote on the members of the appraisal district board, but after that, it's a separate entity. So again, there is something the city can do to offset what is being done to people. That's why they're upset. They're not upset because they read something online and become artificially upset. They're in a corner. They are really hurting. So again, the difference between the effective tax rate, which is the rate that you could pass tonight, and bring in the exact same amount of revenue as last year, not including the extra $200,000, the difference between that tax rate and the tax rate that you are proposing to pass is going to mean $100 more for a family living in a $200,000 home. I wouldn't be standing here if this wasn't happening every year on average. Didn't happen last year, you passed the effective rate. But years before that, how much have taxes gone up here in the last 10 years? 45%, 40%? What are you going to do when you don't have that $200,000 extra bonus from new growth? And I'll give you some room in there because I know you have to build the roads that lead to the new subdivisions. And you don't see that money for a year and a half. I get that. But let's look at what's real here. This is affecting people. I'm asking you to cut the rate. I'm asking you to adopt the effective rate. And that's something that you can do to help people.
So I need a motion one way or the other before we have a discussion.
All right. I move to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the fiscal year 1920 adopted budget.
Have a second? A second. All right. Further discussion? Anybody? I'll say that I tend to look, unlike you, my perspective is always going to be the gestalt of the tax rate, because the city's about 25% of your total tax rate, right? The school district's about 50% of it. TCC, which is where I work, is a percentage of it. And TCC is about getting ready to issue almost $1 billion bond, very quietly. And then you got the county. And so to me, it's always been that there's just a certain amount of the pie that you can actually tax before you discourage growth or anything else like that. Because there isn't an optimal tax rate on what cities need to be able to do and schools need to be able to do. But when you become burdensome, then I think that it becomes harmful to business, it becomes harmful for residents, absolutely. And so there's that small piece of pie, and Kelly Hancock has always made that argument. There's a small piece of pie that you have to deal with. And if you're going to take pie from one part, it's going to have to come from somebody else. And I agree with that philosophy. But when we dropped the tax rate last year, as we did, we went into a tailspin, as George can tell you, on our reserves. If we were to drop the tax rate to the effective rate, those raises don't come in. They don't happen. We cannot do the road projects that we'd like to do. We would have a hard time at looking at a police and fire station. Granted, there's a tax burden, but I think the solution to that tax burden is being a little bit more business friendly, trying to get more retail in here to develop that, and not just using property taxes to do it. Because you're right, Kennedale operates mainly on property taxes, and it subsidizes a lot of the businesses that are on this parkway. Not all of them, but a lot of them it does because of the tax rates. And so we have to do something about that. And if we do nothing, then we fall further behind. And it's great that somebody comes up here like you and say, look, here are the issues, and makes us stop and think about it. But we know from everybody in here that these guys here, these first responders, are underpaid. We know that the police department has been underpaid, that we're way below that market value. That money doesn't come from anywhere, right? And we know that we have at least 20 road projects that need to be done. We have stormwater projects that need to be done, and we can't just keep putting them off. And so I don't like taxes any more than you do, Joe. I just don't. I pay a lot in federal taxes. I pay a lot in property taxes. But it's true, people may complain about property taxes, but they're also going to complain when we don't fix their roads. When our firefighters start leaving and they don't get the fires put out, or they need an ambulance, and those guys are there to save their lives. We need to keep those people, and we need to take care of those people as much as we possibly can. So I understand your point of view, and at some part of me, I'm in there with you, but in other parts, I got to go, we've got to solve the problems we have in this city. And it's a tough decision. And I know these people are trying to make the best decision that they can. So since I'm the only one that had a comment.
I'll comment too.
Okay, thank you.
You know, looking at the numbers that we've seen here lately, we have seen an uptick in our sales tax. Not a lot, but a little. And I think we're starting to trend the right way, that here in the next couple of years, with the way that growth and development is coming and the things that are going around in our region, that we will be able to start drastically pulling back the burden to our property tax owners, because we'll be able to subsidize that with sales tax like we should be doing. Unfortunately, the past is the past, and we've gotten to this point where we are burdened as property owners because we have done so little in the regards of getting our business community the help and the needs that it needs to grow. And I'm glad to see that that's changing. We're moving that ball forward. And so as more sales tax come in to our city, that is definitely how we're going to be able to push back that property tax. I mean, the numbers just don't add up if you don't do that. And so, you know, that's my commitment going forward and continuing going forward, is to be more aggressive in our business community to help push those sales tax dollars higher, to get more people here to spend their money here. So just, you know, that's where I stand with it. And as soon as we start doing that, we'll definitely have better legs to stand on to pull back our tax rate and keep it down.
And I think the other way to do it is, you know, we have to leverage our dollars. That means having good relations with the county, having good relations with TxDOT. We met with TxDOT about maybe trying to get several $1 million here to work on the parkway. We have to leverage every dollar we can get. And that's what we attempt to do. And I think this city council sticks to the nuts and bolts of what we're supposed to do. We're trying to do it. I don't think anybody is here happy we may have to raise taxes, but they all recognize that we need to help our first responders and our employees. Anybody else?
I just want to say that we have a lot of homeowners who have been having issues with flooding, and they have been asking for years to get these issues fixed. And we cannot keep ignoring their needs. I know if my house was flooding every year, I would want the city to step in and do something, because I pay my taxes to the city. And everybody up here owns property, and we have the same tax burden that everybody else is going to have. So it's not like we hitting y'all and we're not getting hit. But there are needs out there, and it's our job to take care of those needs. And I know a lot of people's not going to like it, but sometimes you just got to take that punch and go along with it. Sarah, I know you don't like it, all right, but you don't like anything, so you good. Yeah. Okay.
All right, anybody else? Chris? No, sir. Okay. Well, that- all right, well, then we'll entertain a vote. I think we will. Pass 4-0. All right. Item C, consider approval ordinance 679, fixing and levying the municipal ad valorem taxes for the city of Kennedale for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2019, and ending September 30th, 2020. Directing the assessment and collection thereof, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective debt date. So, Joe, you want to come back with the rebuttal?
I'm trying very hard not to take 3 minutes each time. Joe Palmer, representing Kennedale Alliance of Business Owners. One city council member said we're trending in a direction of strong sales tax. Well, how many years have we said that here? It is a true thing that is happening. Sales tax is upticking. You've got the QT that is there at the corner. You got McDonald's. And I personally believe and would like to see more growth like that in the sales tax so that you can take the burden off the property owners. But again, I'm going to go back to the $199,000 in new cash that you got from new growth that you never saw before. Is $200,000 not enough to pay the salary of your employees? But to take a more global look at it, is the amount of taxes that people pay in this city, is it enough to run the city or is it not? That's the question, isn't it? It's the question every year. When people pay their taxes, they ask the question, will this be enough next year or will they come after me for more? What is the amount of money that you believe you need to run this city? Can we set a tax rate that will stay the same or grow 2.5% to match cost of living, 3%, 3.5, 4.5? Can you guarantee that? If not, what is it that we're doing here? What is an organization called? I'm not criticizing the leadership of an organization. I think that you've been dealt a particular hand here. Part of it is the legislature, sure. And quite frankly, I don't understand why local taxing entities, representatives of those taxing entities, don't attack the state with the same arguments that they're attacking you guys. They're raising our fees too. They're not the friend of the taxpayer either. But what is the amount of money that you want from us in order to be able to run this organization? What should it be? You should find a way to run it that increases, that mirrors the cost of living increase. First responders, they need benefits, they need more pay. New growth pays for new services. New growth pays for new first responders and more needs of first responders. 1 unit of government, 1 unit of services required, 1 unit of property taxes and sales taxes paid. What is the tax rate going to be next year? Is it going to be another 9.5? What are you going to do when you don't have that extra money from new growth? Cut people's taxes.
All right, I need a motion before we have a discussion. Any motion?
I make the motion, we adopt ordinance 679, fixing and levying the fiscal 1920 ad valorem property taxes for the city of Kennedale.
Well, and this motion needs to be read verbatim. What's in your staff report?
Okay. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.734970, which is effectively an 8.0% increase in the tax rate.
So second.
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
Just for clarification, we heard the mention of $200,000 of extra money. What was the cost of giving our police and fire the benefits they were promised last year but not given?
I'm sorry, Chad, would you repeat the question?
What was the cost of the implementation of the STEP program for this year for police and fire that they were not given last year?
Danielle, do you remember the number? I don't have it.
So that would have been a wash. Okay.
Well, I think last year when we first made the step,
Just for public service, not for the civilian employees.
and I think when we first began it, there was an extra $435,000 we had initially invested.
You've got a better memory than I do, but that's about right.
Yeah, about $435,000. And I saw you, Joe, down at Senate Bill 2. I was down there too, testifying, and one of my arguments is one that's contrary to what you just said. Go by the rate of inflation. Well, cities can't operate by the rate of inflation, partly because we do health care. Yeah, I did. I did. Didn't you watch me testify? I watched and waited for you to testify. I watched you testify. You were there. I know. That was the best time to do it. Actually, I think I went after Rocky, didn't I? Yeah. So it was, my argument is that we don't operate on the cost of inflation because we're lucky very lucky, if our health insurance goes up 4.5%. 2.5% doesn't cover it. Construction costs rise a lot faster than the cost of inflation. That's what I told the committee. I said, look, I know you got to do something. I know you've got a problem with property taxes, but we need to keep in mind that these kind of things don't necessarily follow the level of inflation, right? I think we can all agree to that there's some things that outpace inflation. And healthcare, construction costs constantly do it depending on how much construction is going on in the area. There's a lot of demand for construction, prices go up. And $200,000 might cover what they need, but it doesn't cover the new road that we need. It doesn't cover the new fire truck that we are going to need. One of ours is out. Is it still out? Still out. That's $750,000. It doesn't cover the new ambulance that we need that's going to probably run us about $300,000. And you might say, well, why have an ambulance? You're not going to say it when it's coming to pick you up. And so we have those issues that we have to face. And I will tell you, when I first got on the council, we had an ambulance go out and pick somebody up. It broke down. We sent the other ambulance. It broke down, and the guy died back in 2005. And so while cutting taxes is one idea, but there are other factors that we have to play in on what we're trying to do here. You know, people want their streets fixed. That money doesn't come from anywhere. We can't trim some of it. I mean, when we look at these engineering contracts coming up, some of these roads are $1 million. When I think we're going to look at Peggy Lane, I bet you that's going to hit at least $1 million. Somewhere that money has to come from someplace, right? How do we come up with the money? I'm always open to hear what's a good reason to do it, always. But we're going to keep trying.
And I would just like to add that, you know, had we not dropped our tax rate 4 cents last year, this would probably be a very different conversation right now. I think that decision last year is what got us to this point where we have to raise it a penny because it caused such a shortfall that we can't operate. And now we have to give it back up.
And I think the fair question is, how much do you need to run the government? I think that's a fair question. And I think that when we look at what George has put together, that's how much we need to run the government, to do what we need to do, what the council gave him the direction to do in May, that these were the things that the council wanted to see get done, and that's going to cost them a amount of money. And that was a council decision, trying to decide what they want to do. And we didn't give the staff everything they wanted. They got, I mean, I know the police department wanted 3 police officers, but police officers are, I think, $95,000 apiece. I mean, you got what, 1? Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we need. So it's an ongoing discussion. All right, if any other comments? If not,
Mayor, I was just going to, kind of talk about what Chad and Senator both talked about is, will people come in front of us every month? I want this, I want this, I want this. And then when it comes time for us to make the decision, they don't want to pay for it. Building roads isn't free. Fixing fire trucks isn't free. Giving the seniors a senior center is not free, Sarah. Somebody has to pay for that. Well, you don't even live here, Mr. Palmer, so you don't need to ask me for anything.
Hey,
So
let's.
the point
he's
is
got the
that
floor.
everybody here wants things, but nobody seems to want to pay for them.
Hey,
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Palmer. You're asking for the reduction in taxes that you don't pay in Kennedale because you don't live here. Really? For what? What is it that you pay taxes on? What do you pay taxes on, Mr. Palmer? Are you going to answer the question? What do you pay taxes on in Kennedale?
I think we've had enough. This isn't going to go back and forth. Joe, Chris, let's stop this from going back and forth.
The point is that we have to pay for these things. We have to pay for infrastructure repairs. We have to pay for streets. We need a police officer.
Yeah. And it's, okay, let's stop. And we remember that, Sarah, I
I've
remember.
looked at the budget very carefully, and George and his staff have worked very hard. And we have to pay the taxes just like everybody else. We don't get a free ride either. And it is a tough decision, but we want to provide the things that the citizens are asking us for, and unfortunately, that costs money. And to Chad's point, the decisions that this council that I was a part of last year made have put us in the situation that we're in now. And we're doing the best we can to try to make it right. And unfortunately, that costs a penny.
And there's a cost to not doing things. We've seen that on Valley Lane. Valley Lane has been allowed to deteriorate to a point that it's a dangerous road. We have to do things. It's a basic function of government. Police, fire, roads, streets, water, sewer. That's our basic functions. We're not out there doing sanctuary cities. We're not out doing anything like that. We're not passing no smoking ordinances. We're focusing on the basic functions of government, which we should be doing. And that's what we're going to do. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those, please enter your vote. Hey, Joe, you might want to get your camera. I'm not trying to back and forth you. I was just giving you a suggestion. All right, I'll leave you alone. Okay. Yeah. There we go. The vote passes 4-0. All right. Item D, which we don't have any appointments to make, so we'll skip that. Item D, considering city manager entered an agreement with Shield Engineering Group for civil engineering services associated with roadway, water, sanitary sewer, drainage, and improvements for Linda Road.
Yes, Mayor and members of City Council, this agreement will recover the general engineering services for Linda Road, which is currently a 20-foot wide asphalt roadway with bar ditches on either side within a 50-foot right-of-way. It is designed to replace it with 24-foot edge-to-edge asphalt roadway with culverts and drainage ditches. This also will consider the future alignment with Little School Road and connection possibilities. Also, it will address the 8-inch asbestos water line and replace it with PVC, and abandon a 2-inch water line that's currently in service along Linda Road. We'll assess the condition of the sewer with cameras and replace that accordingly. The agreement in the first section will address the 380 agreement with compressed air systems, and then we'll systematically look at the rest of the street and add those prices in as well. The agreement has a price tag of $99,200, and possible funding for this is the 2019 tax notes, the stormwater fund, or the water and sewer funds. Any questions?
So the water line that's asbestos, we'll just leave that buried?
Yes, the general construction for that is the best leave it in place and leave it alone. Leave it covered up.
And does it need to be replaced?
Absolutely.
And so are you saying that the engineering alone is $99,000?
Correct.
Do we have any estimate on what the cost of paying for that street would be, fixing it?
That will come after they do their preliminary investigations. They will provide us with a probable cost of construction at some point in the future.
And that will go all the way down to the end of Linda Road?
Correct. It's currently staged in 4 sections. The first section would meet the agreement, the 380 agreement with compressed air systems. The second part of the agreement, the second section would finish the road to Gale. The third section is sectioned off between Gale and Susan. And then the fourth section is the complete roadway that is currently existing.
So although we're doing part of this road as a 380 agreement to bring in this business, the rest of the road we're doing just because if we're going to be doing one part, we should go ahead and finish the rest of the road. Correct. All right. I'll consider a motion on this issue.
I move that we consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for Linda Road.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, if not, please enter your vote. Motion passes 4-0. Next item, consider authorizing city manager into an agreement with Shield Engineering Group for civil engineering services associated with roadway, water, sanitary sewer, drainage improvements for Collette Sublet Road.
Mayor, members of the city council, this agreement addresses the Collette Sublet Road that's currently existing and will tie in with the future Magnolia Hills section into Sublet Drive, Kennedale Sublet Road, excuse me. This will address an 8-inch asbestos line as well and replace it. We will upsize that to a 12-inch line to meet the same line size in the Magnolia Hills subdivision. This road will be a 28-foot back-to-back concrete section road and with sidewalks for connection and regional transportation issues. This agreement total is $87,700, and possible funding sources are 2019 tax notes, the stormwater fund, and the water and sewer funds, or the impact fee capital improvement fund.
All right, I'll entertain a motion on considering authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement with Shield Engineering for civil engineering services associated with roadway, water, sanitary sewer, drainage improvements for Collette Sublet.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Shield Engineering for those projects on Collette Sublet Road.
Do you have a second? Second. Well, any further discussion?
Just a quick kind of clarification, because I did get some calls and emails regarding this one. How long has that connector been on our future transportation plan to go all the way through?
It was identified in the 2012 comprehensive plan, the future transportation plan section of that.
Okay, just making sure.
Plan.
All right. Any other questions? Please enter your vote. Patience, patience, patience. 4-0. All right, next item, consider the city manager, authorizing the city manager to enter into agreement with Shield Engineering Group for civil engineering services with approximately 600 linear feet of roadway for Trent Street.
Mayor, members of the city council, this agreement will provide a second connection route of access for the Oakcrest neighborhood of Grapevine, Trent, and Valley. Currently, Valley Lane is the only access point, and as you mentioned earlier, Mayor, that Valley Lane is in serious erosion issues along the edge of the road. It is, I do have an engineering firm that hopefully next month will have a contract before you to address the erosion issues for that area, but it's not here yet. The 600 feet would connect the existing Trent Street to Kennedale Parkway. This contract would allow for the engineering firm to design that section, assist the city with TxDOT permits and permitting through TxDOT for that new connection. And the contract amount is for $59,400, and 2019 tax notes or stormwater fund are possible avenues for funding.
Do we have a map of that we could put up there?
I don't think I do.
No, but for the audience, that they could see where we're talking about with Trent Street.
Leslie, do you think you can do that?
Because right now all we have is just that little thing there. And you may know, how many people know where Trent Street is? 2, 3? Okay. Look, firefighters don't count. You have to know all those streets. That doesn't count. Yeah, you don't count either.
Okay.
You're the street guy.
Well, while she's looking that up, how does that play in with that whole area being like floodway and floodplain? Do we have stormwater systems in there to help get the water out of there when it does?
It's all in floodway and floodplain.
Okay, that's Trent Street. Okay, so can you show us what you're trying to do here?
Yes.
You probably can do it on your,
Yeah.
with your mouse. Yeah.
It's on.
Oh, show 'em-
All
show
right.
'em. Does anybody have a laser
That's what I
pointer?
knocked down a while ago, was the mouse.
How can we not have a laser pointer? Okay, well, I think we,
If you look at the highlight, the shaded area, that's the area of construction.
right there.
That's what we'd be building.
That's what this engineering contract will design.
Design, yes. And assist us with right-of-way acquisition.
And the road to the north of that is Valley Lane that's got the erosion
So the
problem.
erosion problem is that straight line at the north where it's,
Right.
we've got the problem that's,
Yes, right along there.
and you're looking at different ways other than just a riprap to fix that?
The design that I have coming is to attain additional right-of-way and widen the channel with the 4-to-1 slopes.
And then if you look in the middle there, it looks like you have a potential road between the two.
Yes, that is the existing right-of-way for Grapevine Trail that does not exist or does not connect.
Is there any advantage to connecting those two roads?
Not at this time due to the fact that the cost of crossing the creek would be very high.
Okay.
But right now, if that Valley Lane erosion problem were to, if we were to have a problem with that tomorrow, there's not other access into that area. So the connection that we're talking about designing would provide the access in and out of that whole area, particularly should we need to close Valley Lane.
And that would be asphalt?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion authorizing the city manager to enter into agreement with Shield Engineering for engineering services associated with 600 linear feet of roadway for Trent Street.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into the agreement with Shield Engineering Group for civil engineering services associated with approximately 600 linear feet of roadway for Trent Street.
Have a second? I'll second. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Please enter your vote. All right. Last but not least is adjournment. I'm just going to ask you, I need a motion to adjourn. Really? You want to stay? All right, do I have a second? All those in favor, raise your hand. We're adjourned.